Hello, everyone. Welcome to our usual Tuesday afternoon show. With me today, not as usual, is Peyman. Peyman, nice to see you, sir. How are you today?
Oh, hanging in there. How are you?
Ha. My God, I thought they'd have C9 passed by now. So, I mean, better than I thought we'd be.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I'm so pessimistic now. I'm thinking like, all right, if they didn't pass it, they must have done it for a reason.
If they didn't pass C9, I think
Yeah,
it's
because they don't give a shit about us.
no. I think it's a head fake. I think that I've been talking a lot about. We were going to talk about the conservative convention, but we'll get there in a minute. I've been talking a lot about how they need our consent in order to get things moved forward. And my example, my proof for this is that there was no we didn't vote our way out of COVID. We all just kind of stood up and said, I don't effing well think so. I think I'm done with this mask. I think I'm done with these crazy orders. I think we're done with shutting down school. I don't fucking think so. I don't think so. And if they tried to unilaterally, top down, limit speech, if they threw me in jail, and I'm not saying that people would be like, oh no, get Mark out of jail. Oh my gosh. But if they threw me in jail, I think they'd have a really friggin' hard time because I'm not agreeable at all. And so I would make it a hard time for them. And I would make it legally a hard time. And I think other people who are like me would also make it a hard time for them. And it's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to plead guilty to maybe have a short jail sentence. I would be like, prove it, I would get in their face and I would make it hell on earth to put me in jail because they don't put violent criminals in jail. So they're going to put me in jail for having skeptical eyebrows? Give me a friggin' break. They're going to have a hard time with that. They need our consent for this. And they keep threatening. They keep going, oh, we're going to do this. And all the framing, Australia, France, Britain, we got to protect the kids. Won't somebody please think of the children? And the whole plan is we're going to get the kids and then backdoor this digital ID. It's not going to work. And like, what do you think if you're a 16-year-old kid who now gets social media, right? You're 17 years old. What are you going to think? This social media is great? No, you're going to go back to what you were doing at 16 because the social media is propaganda garbage and you know it's lying to you. Oh, thank you. I get access to the propaganda. Screw you, government. Like they need our consent because otherwise we'll tell them where to go. We won't comply and they damn well know it. And so that's why we're seeing this back down. That's why we're seeing this. And it's like a bear or another like top predator where you stand there and you have to stand your ground or otherwise they're going to come and maul you. If you're like, oh no, please don't put your speech laws up, they're going to come and maul you. But if you're like, screw you, bear, and like you punch the damn thing in the nose, I'm not recommending you punch a bear in the nose. But it is one of those things where if you stand your ground, they can't do it. And like they couldn't do COVID. They could not do COVID. And they're so mad with themselves that they couldn't do it. But they're losers. And they couldn't do COVID, and they're not going to be able to do this. And I think that if we stand our ground and punch them in the nose, proverbially, then we're going to do better than if we cower and beg them to spare us. Screw them. They work for us. And they better beg us that we'll spare them after what they've done, in my opinion. So that's why
It's a good segue. It's a good segue into the Conservative Party convention. I think what's changed, COVID, they crossed the Rubicon. There's no going back now.
They took the mask
people
off.
Are pissed off. They did, but like people have been pissed off for 6 years now.
Yeah.
And at first we were getting our asses kicked. Now we got momentum. And now we're coming out. We're like, no, we're not doing this anymore. I don't give a shit if you tell me I'm a bigot. I don't give a shit if you tell me I'm a bad person. I'm not going along with this. And this was what happened in the Conservative Party convention when they voted down this, this is called anti-trans ideology bill. They voted it down and they cheered it on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching people, Mark Nixon, great guy. I've been on his podcast and I'm thankful for that. But he came out and he was defending it. And I think he's missing the point. Mm-hmm. The outrage is not because of the substance of what was in the bill. The outrage is why are we even considering this? We should be going in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. Our way of life is completely destroyed. And the Conservative Party they're not recognizing that. And I see this as them transitioning to pivot to the left to pick up the center voters and use these fake independent journalists, social media influencers to try to placate the right. It's not going to work. We're already awake. We're pissed off. We've been pissed off for 6 years. This isn't going to work.
Yeah, well, I agree it's not going to work. And the reason that the Conservative Party is struggling is because they've refused to engage in the things that matter and instead engage in, like what you're talking about, placating the left, saying, oh, maybe there's some validity in this gender ideology thing, and there isn't. And so as Alberta, especially with Alberta separation and Alberta independence, because I don't think they're separatists, I think they're independentists. And so with that, in the context of conservative Canada, if Alberta goes, the CPC, I mean, it is my opinion that the CPC is in a collapsing state right now. But if Alberta goes, their entire base is gone. Who's going to vote for them? Manitoba? Like Wab Kinew has got something to say about that. I don't think so. So not only would Alberta leaving tank Canada, I think it would tank Canada as a country. I don't think Canada survives economically without Alberta, but the rest of it too, like socially, done. The whole thing, done. The whole thing. If
now we have the BC Prosperity Project that just got spun up in the last 4 days.
And there's a Saskatchewan Prosperity Project too, right?
I don't know about that one, but the BC Prosperity one, it gained like a bat out of hell.
Yep.
And it's not whether this succeeds or whether it fails. What matters is people are fed up and they're looking for some way to get out of this authoritarian structure that Ottawa has put in place.
Yes.
And you're right. If Alberta leaves, first of all, Canada is cooked. They can't afford it financially.
We can't afford it. Yeah.
Strategically, you just can't get shit across the country if the middle of the country just opts out.
Yep.
But people, they're pissed off. And I said this after the April election. I'm like, it's not going to end here just because the bad guys stole the election. People are going to turn to Alberta. Alberta didn't really work for a while. People turned to BC, One BC, and then that imploded. Now they're turning to the BC Prosperity Project. It's like a blind man, or groping around in a room trying to find the light switch. That's what Canadians are right now.
Sure, but if we had an honest election, if we had an honest political structure that allowed, like the People's Party, that allowed people who were against migration, mass migration into Canada, if we had an honest situation where people could build a party like that and actually use that vehicle and win things, because our elections are rigged, we don't have that, then we wouldn't need to continually support these fringy down ticket things. You know what I'm saying? And that's how fringy down ticket things, like the reform parties, all coming together, taking 10 years to come together to form the Conservative Party of Canada. They went through some growing pains and things like that and ultimately formed government, right? New political parties are not being allowed to rise in Canada because the citizens don't want what the globalists want to sell. And so if you show up on the scene and say remigration now, Dominion Society is not a political party. And so it's difficult to shut them up because they're not a political party, right? They're not actually running for anything. They want to fund people who run for conserving Canada's culture. But if you've got a political party like the PPC or like One BC, Zionists took that over, then you can tank those parties and never let them win, make them fringe, make them a joke, basically, through constant media attack. And then what happens is people don't know what to do. And so they support One BC, and then they support whatever the vehicle is that looks like it's going in the direction they want to go, because everything else is going in the opposite direction towards Wokeville. And they don't want to do that. So they're trying to figure out how to get to the other way, and you can't. You're not allowed. And so our system prevents the self-correcting stuff that's built into it because our elections are rigged. And I wish they weren't rigged, but that's an inescapable fact of why we are in a situation where people are groping around in the dark. It's because if you do know about, say, you or me or these other alternative political parties, you're one of a very few people who do. And anybody who tries to break through that is silenced. Karen, yeah.
Before I share my thoughts, my view is a little bit bleaker than yours, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Oh.
When you say the self-correction is not there or it's not working, give me an example. What would be a self-correction?
Oh, well, so the Liberals import their voter base, right? So if the electorate were honest, that's one way they rig elections. They bring in a voter base and they buy those votes. So you can do it with groups, Khalistanis, Sikhs, or your regular everyday BIPOC. Are you allowed to say BIPOC words? Like if you're in Toronto, right? Just any old BIPOC, they'll just take them. So they import that group of people, and then those people get money. The refugees, the migrants, they get money, $80,000 a year or something like that. They get hotels, they get phones, and they don't want that to stop. So that is direct vote buying and direct interference and rigging of an election. If we were honest, the percentage, if we were honest and weren't rigging the election through importing people as one vector of rigging the election, then the Liberals wouldn't have the support that they've got. Let's pretend that it's 10% or 5%. I think it's more than that. I think it's probably more than 10% or 5%. I think it's more than 15 too. But if you, and the Liberals have 30% to win majorities and things like that. It's kind of like 28 to 32% in the regular vernacular. Maybe they're up to 48% or something like that now. But again, rigged elections. You don't come in on a promise of making a deal with Donald Trump and then make a deal with China instead and gain support. That's insane. So they rig the elections through various means. But if we had honest elections, those percentage ticks that they get for importing voters, for mail-in ballots, all that stuff would be removed, and their real support would look much less. If their real support looks much less, people stop monetarily supporting them, and they stop getting tax dollars from the government to run their political party, and the party naturally dies. So that's the check and balance that's being what's it called? Hotwired when you cheat, when you import voters, when you import supporters, and then you pay them off with tax dollars. And that's not the only way they cheat, but that's just the example here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but let me share my thoughts on why I think we are where we are and why I say it's a more bleak outlook.
Okay.
If you take a mother and the mother has a child and she doesn't like the transgender ideology that's being taught in schools, she knows it's bad for her child. She loves her child. She wants to protect them. If I go to that mother and I say, vote for me, and I will confront and I will stop a transgender ideology. And if there's one trans kid in that school, she's like, well, I want to teach my kid love and I want to teach my kid compassion. I can't support Peyman Asghari because he might put in a law that might harm that one transgender kid. They're captured is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. The parents have been captured. And society is too feminized. Like, you don't have masculine men anymore. It doesn't have to be men, but you don't have that masculine position.
Well, it should be men. It should be men. Testosterone makes you.
Men, but,
testosterone makes you much less agreeable. Women are high in agreeableness.
But you can have tough women. Like I talk to women that are tougher than me. They're like, this is outrageous. Yeah, sure. It's not a gender thing. It's just that men are generally
biology.
Like this,
but biology. Sure, biology does come into play though, and the strategies that women use to solve problems and the strategies that men use are fundamentally different, I think. And so, like, I'm just saying, like, let's not dismiss the male-female thing, because men and women approach problems differently because they're biologically different, and that's okay.
Yeah, but I'm trying to avoid that one crazy feminist in the comments that's going to say, oh, you're always attacking women. All women are bad. No, that's not what I'm saying.
I often come up against that in my show too, because I think what's happened. I think women are being, and like, man, we're going to go right into this conversation. I think women are being exploited in order to make society more agreeable and easier to manage.
It's the weaponization of empathy. That's the phrase.
Yeah, sure. But they know women will do that. Why do they know women will do that? Because biology makes women more likely to be agreeable than men, right? And men with low testosterone are much more agreeable and even subservient to women than men with high testosterone. A high testosterone man will tell you to get, like, F off. Like, this is not what I'm doing because it's F you. And they won't even have a reason to tell you to F off. They'll just tell you to F off. I know, I've done it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of gone now. You don't have, like, when I was younger in Iran, like, it was very common for a dad to go into school and just get into a fist fight with the teachers.
Yes.
Like, what the hell are you doing talking to my daughter after hours? You're a grown man. And then they would beat the guy up and the guy would get fired.
Yep.
But now you have Drag Queen Story Hour. It's absolutely bonkers. But where I'm going with this is, it's hard. It's wrong to blame the Conservative Party for our own failures. They're operating in this world that we've allowed to be created.
Okay, to a degree, but also the whole Western world is under the same attack. Like, I don't think Australia decided at the same time Canada and the United Kingdom and blue states. Everybody kind of decided the whole thing. I watched COVID roll out, and it's like everybody's deciding this. This is not a response to something. This is a rollout, and everybody's decide. And it looks like it's lockstep. This doesn't look natural. And I've said before, like, it doesn't look natural in that this isn't people coming up and saying, oh, my daughter's transgender, my son's transgender, or something like that. This is like weaponized situations where they've got like a track star, they've got a this, they've got a that, and they're trying to push this ideology through those specific stories. But I think the reality of the situation is, like, when I was a kid, Crocodile Dundee got saved by the bar from going home with the man dressed as a woman. Kids weren't cross-dressing. It was men, and like old men. It wasn't young men. It wasn't like if you were a 16-year-old and you showed up in a dress in high school in 1995, I will tell you, you would get your ass handed to you. Somebody would beat you up. And like,
well, you probably get sent home though.
Maybe. But like this idea of this sympathetic trans identity is manufactured on purpose, and they're pushing it, and it's fundamentally faulty. Like, it would be like me saying I'm a kangaroo. Like, I'm actually a kangaroo, like, I'm not a kangaroo. And it's like, you know that just by looking at me, and it's the same thing. And if you pass, like, if I look like a kangaroo, that's just a lot of surgery. I'm not really a kangaroo, like, and so the whole thing is a falsehood that we're being forced to play along with. And if you don't play along with it, not that they might take your kids, but I mean, they might try and justify taking your kids. There was a man who wouldn't say that his daughter was a boy or his son was a girl or something like that. I can't remember which way it went, but he was put in jail because he wouldn't affirm this. This is faulty. It's fake. They are putting people in jail to scare people. And I know you know that. I'm just,
what I'm saying is, if the powers that be manipulate you, they get some track star to say that I'm a kangaroo, and you're like, oh, I can be a kangaroo, and you're a victim. And then if you come tell me you're a kangaroo, and let's take Frank Vaughn. He tells me, he's like, Peyman, this isn't healthy for Mark to be identifying as a kangaroo. And I turn around and I say, oh, shut up, you bigot,
anti-kangaroo bigot.
That's on me. I'm a grown ass man. If I can't reason, how can the society is falling apart? I get it. But at some point, we have to say, all right, enough is enough. We have to step up as sovereign individuals with the capability to reason.
Okay, so the point of, like, where that changes, not necessarily changes, but like, yes, you're a grown-ass man, and you should stand up to Frank, or you should agree with Frank and not stand up for kangaroo ideology. But say your wife's a teacher, and she teaches a bunch of kangaroos. And say you go to teacher luncheons all the time. Maybe you're even a teacher as well. And now you've got an incentive to look past this whole thing and see kangaroos abound. And so what I'm talking about is Nick Shirley was talking about how he believes in brainwashing now because people are defending fraud, even though they shouldn't defend fraud. It's against their interests. And so people have been given a reason, and actually I wrote down, make everything about Trump and make everybody hate Trump, but people have been given a reason to demonize anybody who doesn't go along with this ideologically driven narrative. And so it works a treat. It works really well, especially with agreeable men or low testosterone men. And so the incentives are there. Government. So like, you and Frank probably wouldn't get into that conversation, but at work, your boss and you might. You know what I mean? Like, now there's a different incentive because you have to play along or you might lose your job, or your wife and you might get into that conversation. And now there's a different incentive. Your wife may be a teacher or something like that, somebody who plays along with this, or maybe just sympathetic to the whole thing because she's as brainwashed as everybody else. And so now there's an incentive to find out where this person is on the spectrum and then match them, because we're a pack animal. And if we don't do that, everybody's like, you're not who I thought you were. So that's why I try to be really clear about what I think. But
no, you're right about that. So the job thing it's a different story. Like, take it to the extreme. If you work for the government or teachers, if you're a teacher,
like
you're toast if you bring this stuff up. I'm talking about, you go to a family dinner and you got this person sitting in front of you, father, mother, who's clearly voting liberal, and they hold two competing views. They're telling me about all the crazy stuff that's going on in the schools with their children, their daughters, sons, daughters.
Yep.
But they will like forcefully disagree with me, violently disagree with me if I offer a solution, because they think that solution is evil. It's mean because it might hurt somebody's feelings. They want to make an omelet, but they don't want to crack any eggs.
Yeah, it's like saying, like listening to somebody complain about migrants or invading people, and then you say, I love what ICE is doing, eh? Like they're getting those guys out, rah rah ICE, and they're like, oh, you monster, right? And it's like, holy shit, like you.
No, you don't even have to go there. Like they'll lower their voice under their breath. They're like, there's so many immigrants, and you're like, all right, maybe we should reduce the number of immigrants. Like, no, immigrants are just like us.
That's not the answer. It's like, what?
Yeah, that's racist.
No, that's not. And that's the other thing. Immigrants are not just like us. And like, if I grew up in Africa, I wouldn't be just like me. You know what I mean? I'd have African bias. I wouldn't be me. I'd be somebody who grew up in Africa, and I would have biases that traveled with me, and I would not speak English. If you moved to Africa, or if you moved to like an Eastern country, China or something like that, first, you would be completely politically isolated. You'd be disenfranchised. I would not be able to enter the Japanese ruling class. I wouldn't be able to be a mayor or a PM or the prime minister or like the deputy leader of the Conservative Party, to bring it back to the Conservative Party. I wouldn't be allowed to do that. One of the reasons is because I wouldn't be able to speak the friggin' language. Very difficult, right? China, whatever. Couldn't speak the language. I couldn't speak the language in the Middle East either. Different, what's it called? Alphabets. And like, I'm actually politically disenfranchised here. Why? I can't speak French, not effectively. And so like, how is it that we can have an entire, we can have, what is it? How much of the rest of the country is not Quebec? 75, 80% of the country, let's say, just landmass wise. How can we have 80% of the country that doesn't speak a language that you're required to speak if you want to be the prime minister? Isn't that friggin' weird? But anyway, you're disenfranchised right away, and you have no political pull. But that's not true if you migrate this way. Isn't that weird? Isn't that a strange thing? How do they all know how to speak English? How do they all know how to get into different levels of politics? This seems like an attack. It doesn't seem normal. It seems manufactured. We're watching political parties turn into balkanized, culturally balkanized groups while they're running the country. And we don't have any recourse. And if we try to even talk about it, we get demonized because that's mean or racist or something like that. And that's insane. Like the Dominion Society as well talks about, and I think it's an interesting part of the conversation. Like if you were born in Japan, if Greg was born in Japan, he wouldn't be Japanese, right? Or would he be Japanese? And I think no. Because like Japanese have a very specific look that Greg doesn't have, right? And yet a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian in Canada. And so that means everybody, and that no Canadians are special, and that there's no real culture. I had
an interview with Daniel Tyree, and I was kind of explaining this to him. First of all, Canadians, they've been deprogrammed, they've been brainwashed. So they cannot say I am Canadian, you are not Canadian. Like I always tell people, I say I'm Iranian Canadian, and then I say I was born in Iran, but I'm a Canadian citizen, right? I don't even want to ever go down there. But if you went to Iran and you married an Iranian woman, everybody would treat you with respect. They would treat you just as much as a human being as every other person there. But they would say, oh, it's Mark. I don't know, Layla's white husband, Layla's Canadian husband.
Yeah.
And then or they'd be like,
and that's no disrespect. It's no disrespect.
It's not a disrespect
no.
thing. It's an observation thing.
Right. It's pointing out reality. There are four lights.
Beaten out of Canadians. Yes. That you're not supposed to do that. So you have like 3 generations of Canadians that have been brainwashed. That
are terrified. So I'm a first generation Canadian. My parents both, they met in Toronto. Both, my dad came to Canada and went to elementary school in Canada, but he didn't get here until he was like 8, I think. And my mom got here when she was a 20-year-old, like 19, 20 type deal, to be a nanny. Okay. And I was having this conversation with my mom. I said, like, you're not Canadian, because she's a Brit. And I said, like, I feel Canadian, but like, I'm part of the European group that settled the country or whatever. So I don't feel like there's much of a difference. But if we came here, I don't feel like there's much of a difference between like my family coming to Canada in the 70s, right, when my parents got here, my dad in the 60s, I guess, and European settlers in the 1900s who were sending kids from the work camps in England to be farm slaves in Saskatchewan, which they did. So I don't know that there's much difference. You know, there's a lot of movement there, but we're not from the Middle East. And so the culture's similar. So like I went back when I was a kid and I saw my grandparents and like everybody was speaking the same language. The technology was mostly the same. There were some cool differences between England and Canada. I never went back to Greece. I've never been to Greece. So my dad's never been as long as I've been alive as well. So it's just been, we hang out in Canada, but, and not to bore you with family history or anything like that, but I feel like if my family, if my mom, say, was from the Middle East, there would be a very different outcome, I think. And again, I think that there are Canadians, just like there are Chinese, just like there are Japanese, and pointing out that like, yes, you're born here. Yes, you're a citizen here, or whatever it is, because I was born here, citizen. And like, no, you're not Canadian because this is what Canadian is, or no, you're not Indian because this is what an Indian is. And you're born here, sure, and you may have these certain things that you have responsibilities for, but that doesn't make you Indian. That makes you like you. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just an observation. It is a fact. Does that make sense? Like, it's not trying to be insulting.
But I mean, like, think about how much, I think we're the same age, how much the world has changed in our lifetimes.
Yep.
Majority of this is because of mass immigration with Europe.
Yes.
But I think it's also urbanization. Like when you put people in these cities and everyone's transient, like if you take someone from Vancouver and you move them to Singapore or Tokyo or Moscow, I guess, maybe. Forget Moscow, London, England. Mm-hmm. It's all pretty much the same, right? Like, and England, when I first went there, when I was like 5 years old, it was a white country. You used to say there's Englishmen here.
Yep.
Now, if you go to Marble Arch in London, it's like Riyadh.
Yep.
Man, I can't go there. I'm not.
Yeah, you're pretty light. Yeah. For real. Yeah, and I agree with you. And it's when I went to England, I was in England in the early 80s. My mom went back to show me off to her family, you know, like, oh, look at my son from Canada, you know, like, ooh. And so I spent the first couple of Christmases in England, and not that I remember a lot from then, but up until I was 10, we went back almost every year. And like my dad was working a lot to help facilitate that, but he was like, you know, this is what we do. And so it's one of those things where it's drastically different than what I remember. And I went back in 2012 and I thought things have changed in England in 2012. And I know it's even worse now. And it's very, very, and you're saying like the difference between like in the 40 years we've been alive, 40 odd years we've been alive, the difference is unbelievable. I think that we are not understanding that it's an attack. I think that we're not understanding just how serious they are about getting rid of the West and what we expect for living standards and what we expect for freedom of speech and things like that. There are other places. I don't think there's anywhere else in the world that's takes freedom of speech as seriously as the United States, and even they're falling down. Even they're not doing as well as they should. And so in the East, a lot of it are theocratic, like the KSA, Saudi Arabia, that's a theocracy. So like, it's not like you get free speech. If you say the wrong thing, if you're the wrong person and you don't have the right chaperone or whatever it is, you know, caste system in India, there's a whole bunch of different things that are a different way of managing people than free capitalism. And the powers that be want those. They don't want this capitalism thing. The capitalism thing is a very, very annoying thing for them. They would rather get rid of it. And that's what we're watching. And I hope I'm wrong about that, but it seems like that's what we're watching. If you get rid of free speech, you can't identify the problems. And you have to just kowtow to whatever they tell you is happening. You have no agency.
Yeah, this is a far bigger conversation. I don't even know where I want to start with that.
Sorry.
No. It's a good topic. But you said that people don't understand that we're under attack.
I think so. It's too big.
It's like, it's all, you could call it like democratic communism. Like you have 51% of these people in the urban centers, they're cheering on for communism. Like we need open borders. We need speech censorship. I was talking to a lawyer. This is during the election. and we were kind of getting into an argument of, why Peyman are you so pro America? And I asked him, I'm like, what are the differences you see? And he goes, Canada's constitution is superior to America's because our rights are limited while theirs are unlimited. So theoretically, the government can more easily keep you safe here. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Thanks. Goodbye. Good luck. Yeah. Like, how do you reconcile that? Like that is irreconcilable, that belief system.
Yeah. And that's when you try and say our rights and freedoms, rights are what we are preloaded with comes from God or some superior being than the government. And so the government shouldn't limit those things. There shouldn't be a limit on free speech. Now, should we not have criminal code? No, that's stupid. If you say something, you're not shielded from the consequences of that thing, but you can't make up consequences that weren't there before. If you say, don't get vaccinated, this could be, this could be very bad for you, or check it out before you do, or something like that. These are not speech controls that should be in the criminal code, but yelling fire in a crowded theater, maybe everybody can agree with that, but that's very narrow and specific. It's not like causing fear in a crowded theater, right? Causing uncomfortableness. Well, what's fear? What's uncomfortableness? What's hate? Causing hate in a crowded theater. What's that? That's not specific enough, right? And so there's this difference, and people aren't allowed to find that distinction. They're not allowed to discern those things. You know what I'm saying?
I think people, they know what the difference is. And here, the purpose of government, you mentioned crime. It's just to enforce the criminal code, run the courts, maybe the military, maybe law enforcement. Mm-hmm. It's not to do social engineering. Like, this is social engineering. When you go in and you tell parents, if your kid wants to identify as a unicorn, you are not allowed to stop them from identifying as a unicorn. That's social engineering. Yep. That's not a crime anymore. Yep. But they're backdooring it in by saying, well, we're just going to expand the scope of a criminal act. Well, sure. I mean, make it illegal to have free enterprise, then put it under the criminal code. But that's not, people are smart enough to see what they're doing.
I think so. They should be smart enough. But I think there's that browbeating aspect of see all these bills to C5 allows the government to be exempt from a whole bunch of laws that aren't criminal code laws. And so they've done this because in order to get things built, you have to break these climate laws and all the rest. And so instead of actually solving the problem, they're creating all these exceptions to the policies problem, the problems created by the bad policies that they passed. Does that make sense?
What explain for me, what's Bill C5? I don't know.
C5 gives the fundamental part is it gives the government the ability to allow ministers to not follow the laws as long as it's not criminal code. So like the No More Pipelines law, like Bill C69.
Oh, I see. So you make it impossible for everyone else to work.
And then you can, so like what they do is the reason that they want the censorship is because they get to pick the winners, and their winners are their buddies. They get to pick the winners. They want to use our resources, Canada's resources, but they don't want you and me being an oil company. They don't want you and me being able to make money on it. They want you and me to be masked and vaxxed and working for them, who they're allowed to break the laws and build the company. But you and me, we have to listen to them and work for their law-breaking company. Does that make sense? That's why they're doing what they're doing. Yeah.
No, I agree. I was talking to an orthodontist, and she identified all the problems. She goes, the regulations, the colleges, everything's being consolidated. Mm-hmm. These are the people I'm talking about, though. If you go to them and you say, all right, we're in a communist society, we have to, take this down and move more to private enterprise, they won't vote for me. I don't know if they're afraid of the unknown, or they're just programmed that anything not status quo is bigoted and prejudiced. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I think that I think that they would. I think that they would vote for you, but it's not like, it's difficult to go and sell that in like a one-on-one situation. You know what I mean? Like to get a commitment for a vote in a one-on-one situation. I really strongly feel like the reason the PPC or the reason independents or whatever don't get traction is because the elections are rigged. You know what I mean? Like, Trump lost the 2020 election, but when I was watching the 2020 election,
he won.
He won it. He won it.
Yeah.
And like, so I looked, like I've run for school board, lost. I ran for PPC in 2019, lost. I came in 5th right after the NDP. So whatever. But I had people messaging me. I had people walking up to me and shaking my hand. I was at the gas station and I was filling up my tank, and I was talking to my son, and he was young. He was super young. He was in like a car seat, right? And I was like, oh, hey, I'm over here. And a person came out of the 7-Eleven, and I was kind of walking around, and I had opened it was an automatic door. So I think my son was asking for a candy or something like that. And this guy came around, shook my hand, and he started talking to my son about me. And I was like, he's like, your dad is fighting for freedom. Your dad is a really good guy. You know, you should be proud to have this guy as your dad. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you very much. But this is a little much, man. Like I'm just getting my gas here. Like chill. But it was a weird, like, if only 1,000 people voted for me, 1,500 people or something like that. I had a huge Twitter presence with Guelph people, not just like my Canada Poly presence, but like locally. I had it dwarfed everybody who was running against me, social media, and nobody voted for me. I had people come up to me after the debate in the city hall and say, you know, I hadn't even looked at PPC, but your performance in the debate today, like I'm definitely, like, me and my family, we're all voting for you. And I was like, great, like wonderful. A friend of my dad's was at the debate, and he said, like, I had no idea that this party even existed. Holy shit. Like, this guy's great. And like, he's like, this is your son. And it wasn't really me. I mean, I guess I'm a pretty good talker, but the policies were PPC. So I think people do vote for us, or I think people do and will vote for independents or PPC, people who are talking sense. But I think our elections are rigged. And I mean, they dismiss that, but I think like that's the crux of the friggin' problem. And that's what prevents that check and balance of people who getting disinterested in a political party, the political party dies. I mean, there were Whigs, there were all sorts of political parties with names that have been lost to history that would sound ridiculous now, but they were massively powerful. You know what I mean? And so like we're sitting here, and I often think back to Arrested Development. We are not allowed to move forward because we are stuck in this, because the people in power are in power in this configuration, and they don't like anything else because they lose power in any other configuration, censorship and all.
Look, like I know that the elections are rigged. I mean, just look at the last BC elections here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, massive. And the remanded, that guy has been like a dog with a bone. And man, people like that I have unending respect for, because I would have a hard time running up that hill every day. And he's just carried on. He's getting results, man. So like high five, and I have nothing but respect for that. Just unbelievable. But I hope it is, at the end, it is a satisfying, like, we made this change. We fought for this, and we were able to succeed in it. And I feel like, man, every time I felt close, like I've done something good, it gets reversed, and I'm like, oh fuck, it's so much worse than it was.
My frustration, yeah. Again, the elections are stolen. My frustration is that we can't get our act together in an organized manner. The PPC, like, they should be spearheading this and saying, all right, we got 4 years until the next election. Let's get an election.
Where are the rallies? Where are the rallies? Where's the team? Where's the group of people who are like, I don't know. The CPC's got Jasmine Lane and Mark Nixon and Mario and like they got all these people. PPC are like, so they've got a Twitter account and they're getting into fights with Jeremy McKenzie. I don't understand.
I don't understand what they're doing either. The only thing I can think of is that they're doing internal restructuring, and it's chewing up their time.
Daniel Tyree, look at what Daniel Tyree's done since he left the PPC.
Hey,
right?
Hey,
like,
just to be clear, I'm not defending the PPC. I'm trying to come up.
I'm trying to understand too. No, well, like I wish it was. I don't see anybody on the world stage like Donald Trump. Period. So like, if I was Max Bernier, I'd be having rallies. I'd be having weekly fucking rallies. I would be doing things all the time. Trump doesn't necessarily need rallies every week, but when he was doing rally season, it was rally after rally after rally, and he was building momentum. And when he went quiet, he was building mystique, something. He didn't go quiet without leaving teasers for people who were watching. And I don't see any of that. And maybe it's censored, could be censored. But I don't, just like the conservatives, what's the plan? The conservatives voted for the liberal budget by hiding Andrew Scheer behind the curtains. So what's the plan, guys? PPC, are you going to do anything at all? Like, do something.
God handed this election on a silver platter to the PPC. Not the election. What's going on right now? God's like, how much more ammunition do you want
What do
me
you
to
want?
give
Yeah.
you guys? Like, do something. Run
Do
with
something.
something.
Yeah. Yes.
They don't do anything.
Well, it's not a cohesive. It's like a scatter. It's like firing off a shotgun shell and like getting a big scatter plot on a wall. There's nothing. There's nothing targeted. There's nothing cohesive. There's no lieutenants. I don't see. I did see Michael Bader maybe, and there was a couple of other Nadine Ness, a couple other people. Mark Friesen until, I mean, that's terrible what happened to him. Gosh. But like there were some lieutenants a little bit, but you need to have people who are just like, you've got for the Trump machine, he had a whole bunch of people seemingly independent, but who knows? He had a lot of money too. So a whole bunch of people seemingly independent doing content on him and what he's trying to do, and all the time, unending, right? Since 2015 now. And the PPC don't have that. And I don't understand. They should be manufacturing it if people aren't interested. If people aren't interested, then they should be getting in people's faces and being like, be interested. This is an interesting thing.
I did a space on this last night. People were criticizing the PPC. I was kind of fair and objective. The people that they have in positions of power, I think they have job security. So, as long as the donations are coming in and Max keeps getting voted on in leadership races, nothing has to course correct. And their only strategy is every few years we'll update the policy platform. Maybe we'll add another policy. That's not going to excite the country. Like you said, you need to have rallies. You need to put out content, messaging, lieutenants, and you need a goddamn communication structure. As a candidate, nothing I said. I'm pretty sure every email I sent to headquarters, they just went into the recycling bin.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't want to shit on the PPC. I think that what they're doing is hard, and I think in the face of the censorship, it's even harder. But I see opportunity, and they flout the opportunities, it seems. And like compare that to Daniel Tyree and what he's done with Dominion Society. That was nothing, and then in less than a year. And I mean, he's got thousands of people, and PPC's got a lot more supporters than that, hundreds of thousands of people who voted for them and things like that. And I'm sure that they have more money coming in because of all the supporters. But then that begs the question, why can't you do more? Like if the Dominion Society can do that with a couple of thousand supporters on $100 rep, like per supporter, then why can't the PPC have rallies in every province? Why can't they have meaningful lieutenants in every province? Why can't they have communication that's coordinated and clear and effective and like goes right to the core of it? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes they do, but a lot of the times, not so much. There was that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's incompetent leadership. The people I told you that are in the national executive that have job security.
Yep.
I saw them making boneheaded mistakes.
Yeah.
And I was like, why don't we course correct? Like I would give them suggestions. I was like, give me the X account and, I'll give you veto power, but there's 3 of us candidates every day. We'll put out a message. We'll come up with a vision, and everything we put on that X post has to further that vision. And nothing. And they did nothing for like a year, and now they've given it to someone who's seemingly a child. He's calling the Conservative Party retarded, which is true.
Yes. The one about the children was a little weird, like targeting their children. Not a weird. We already talked about the gender ideology stuff. I don't know that the Conservatives are quote targeting the children. They're just allowing it. They're just whistling past the graveyard, like Spider-Man in the very first Spider-Man, where he lets the criminal get by and he goes and kills Uncle Ben. Like, what are you doing? Like, you should
see
stop
that right there. That would have made a good post. Like, that's how you should expose them. Not like when they put that picture and he said they're targeting our children. I thought that was like a porn reference. Like all those influencers want to hook up with that one little Asian kid. I didn't even understand that they're talking about
right. And it's not a clear. That's what I mean. It's not a clear communication strategy, and that's a problem. And like nobody seems to think it's a problem. Nobody seems to care one way or the other, and that's weird too. I don't know. And
I have a reason for that too. The people that still support the PPC, they're desperate. They have no other. To them, nothing else will save them except PPC. So they just keep throwing their money at the party. The problem is it creates a negative feedback loop where the party's like, well, I guess we're doing something right. Yeah. We're getting donations.
But it seems like, so, I mean, you and I could own Twitter or like a Reddit style web page or something like that. I do own a Reddit style web page. And so like you could do it right and have it work like Reddit, right? Or you could do it wrong and just have it languish and not work at all, really, right? Because it's the users that make it. If Twitter didn't have any users, nobody would go there, so on and so forth. It's the users make it. So like, what's that secret sauce? And like, how do you get closer to it? And I mean, a bunch of businesses figure it out. You know what I mean? And I'm sure political parties, I guess, figure it out, other than people who import their base. But like, if you're a whatever business and you need leads, you figure it out. And it seems like our political parties think they're entitled to the attention of the electorate, and they don't actually do anything that's meaningful to feed the electorate. They're just like, well, we're the alternative. And it's like, that's not enough, man. You've got to beat them over the head with it. You've got to tell them over and over again. And why are you the alternative? And why are you the better alternative? And if you say it one way, that's not enough, because that only plays with one audience. You've got to say it 10 ways, and you've got to be creative enough to sustain that. You know what I mean? Like, if you're actually doing it seriously, if you're actually not just playing around, I feel like people would lean into, like you said, iterations. Like, we're gonna do this, and this is the direction we're gonna go, and we're gonna course correct if it goes off the course that we want to achieve. And it doesn't seem like any of that's happening. And like on every level, Alberta prosperity and independence, I'm worried they're going to get derailed in a similar way, a different way, but a similar way to lead to the same outcome of nothing changing.
Well, every time. I agree with you. Alberta prosperity, like I don't have no idea what they're doing. Like I
don't know what the plan is. Yeah,
I know exactly. So there's no excitement. You got to keep going, right? Mm-hmm. You can't just ossify and then let down the electorate. But every time we do something, they attack it and they implode it. Like, look at 1BC. Mm-hmm. I thought that was the only person in the country that was saying all the right things. And then next thing you know, these two women, they throw a hissy fit. And I'm like, hey, ladies, this isn't about you. This is about the rest of the goddamn country. Yeah. Reconcile, and the party's done.
Yep. And it is done. And now it's Dallas and Wyatt. And I just can't trust that. Like, come on, man. It's so weird. And I mean, like, yeah, I agree with you. Every time you try and do something, every time. But that's why it's so important for the PPC to continually iterate and continually adapt, because like, and I mean, like, I've been terrible at this. I've been really, really bad because, well, one of the ways that I've been good at adapting is when YouTube canceled me, I looked at what I could do, and I pay for distribution through like my website and through Streamable. So I don't need anybody else to give me space on their platform. I created my own, right? But it's to iterate but after that, I think I've done a pretty terrible job of like getting the word out about my show, because I don't get any help from anybody. In fact, I get suppressed by everybody. I heard this morning, one of my watchers on Spotify messaged me and said, your show, Moose on the Loose, and Jasmine Lane's show won't play. And I was like, okay, like, is it there though? And she said, yeah. And I said, I think it's there. And I asked her to reach out to support. But what happens, like, if you watch The Wealthy Barber or another Canadian show that's not controversial like mine, then it'll play fine. But if you try and watch my show, it'll just circle, and it'll look like you can't use it. And even Streamable, you can download the file, and then it won't drop. But everything, doesn't matter what I use, has some kind of poison pill. Does that make sense? And so, like, I should iterate better. I haven't been iterating better. So I'm asking these guys to do something that I've been incapable of doing myself, but I'm trying to do other things too. You know what I mean? This isn't even my job. Like, this, I just do this for fun. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like if it was my job, if this was the only thing that I was doing for money, and you know, like, I'd figure it friggin' out. I'd iterate. I'd do more, you know, but this is a hobby for me. So,
you know, this is a theft of private property. So this is your enterprise. Now, I know you're not running it as a business, but presumably you would make some money. Mm-hmm. The government is coming in and they're stealing that money. They're also stealing the product from the audience, which would be your viewers. It's a property rights issue. They're calling it censorship, but it's theft.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wonder if there's a legal angle to exploring that. I don't know.
Why, in this fucking country where we have our Minister of Justice saying we don't have property rights?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Probably not. But that's, I mean, that's part of the problem. And again, Dominion society is able to make a big splash and iterate through the censorship. Like most recently at the convention, at the conservative convention, where they said, conserve what? And
I thought that was brilliant.
It was great, man. I think it was trending. I was using conserve what all weekend, man. I was like, this is ridiculous. And the fight with Garnet Genius lost that one. Garnet Genius and Daniel Tyree got into a kind of a back and forth on a Dominion Society post.
I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, it was interesting. Looking Daniel Tyree.
These candidates, especially for the Uniparty, I support like muzzling them because they're incompetent. You don't want them answering tough questions.
Yeah. Well, the whole push was basically saying that Tyree and the Dominion Society didn't understand Canadian historical pluralism vis-a-vis the religious freedom. And he was saying Sikhs have been here, and First Nations and Christians of different sorts, but he didn't get into the Christians of different sorts. And then Tyree responded basically like the religious pluralism was made so Protestants weren't attacked by, like, Orangeville is named Orangeville for a reason, and it's a religious reason. Like
Donald Trump?
Yeah, no, no, because the Orangemen, right? Like it's the Protestant. That's the Protestant colors, right? So this was a big deal in Canada. It wasn't saying come here, everybody. It wasn't saying like all of your religions are valid and equal and so on and so forth. Now, I have no problem with Muslims in the Middle East. I have no problem with Buddhists in Asia. I have no problem with Japanese religions. But when people come here and all of a sudden Sharia law is being demanded of people in schools or people in restaurants or people in, selling pork, selling alcohol, things like that, that's a problem. And that's not something that, like, again, I don't hate people because of their religion and what it tells them to do, but I dislike when people come to I wouldn't go to another country and say, this is my tradition in my country, so this is what I'm going to do here. What right do I have to say that? So why would people come here and assume they have the right to change our country? It's insane. It's crazy. So like, I will tolerate a religion, but you don't get to come in here and say, and use your religion as a shield, and they'll call me Islamophobic and anti-Semitic. And these are terms to shut down a conversation that criticizes anybody for any reason. And they say, oh, that's very racist of you, Mark. That's very Islamophobic. Nope,
yeah,
it's not.
Religion, it's like a super culture.
Yeah.
It supersedes culture. And when you have two religions, they won't mix.
Yeah, no, like, it's not a good idea.
Nobody ever says like we need more diversity of religion. Like we need to have religious.
Oh my gosh,
diversity of religion.
One wins. Like there was a story of a woman, and she was Christian, or she was Muslim. No, her husband was Muslim, and she was maybe Christian, maybe not, maybe like a different, maybe Hindu. I think it was Hindu. So Muslims and Hindus marry often. And it was Hindu. And the Hindu woman wanted to raise their daughter more in the Hindu religion type deal, and that did not happen. Like she didn't want headdress, she didn't want hijab, anything like that, and that didn't happen. And it ended up the relationship failed, and the husband kept the custody of the kids. And I was like, that's crazy, man. Like this is, and not to say
you got to choose your partner wisely.
Yeah, man, you can make a bad mistake.
COVID's shown, like you can't, you don't want to. If you're a hardcore conservative, don't marry a Karen white liberal woman with a liberal arts degree. Vice versa, if you're, a vegan transgender person, you don't want to marry like a Christian conservative.
Yeah, no, you're gonna have a bad time. A lot of people, I think, don't understand that the choices we make impact our lives. They think this is short term, gonna impact me short term, but like. You can make a choice and it's going to impact you decades later. And you're like, oh man, like this is good and bad, like it can, and even like a car, you make a choice for a car that's going to follow you around for 5-10 years, maybe depending. Right. And like, so a partner for the rest of your life, if you choose poorly, that could cost a lot of money, a lot of money. And the thing was, she was fine with the son. They had a son and a daughter, and she was fine with the son being raised more Muslim for her husband, but she wanted the daughter to be softer.
Forgive me, but I don't really see too much difference between Hinduism and Islam.
I think there is a difference. I think Hindu is more similar to Christianity, and it's like in my head, and this is just a short version, I guess, for me, but like Christianity, Hinduism are more of a soft religion where you can engage or not engage as much as you want, and the community is not going to really like get down on you. Although I don't know very many Hindus, so I could be ascribing modern Christianity ideals to Hinduism incorrectly. I could be. But I think it's more like Christianity. Whereas when I think of Islam, I think very hard. I think there's not a lot of forgiveness. Like if you are a woman and you say, I'm not going to wear a hijab, that's a problem. Like if you're a man and you say, I don't think this is right or whatever, vis-a-vis certain cultural things, then you're going to get, there's going to be a consequence for you. Whereas if you have, well, in the version of Christianity that I grew up in, if you had thoughts that were outside of what was accepted, that was acceptable. It wasn't like you were going to get punished necessarily. Although I did hear of people who were punished if they had, like, there were American people who were punished if they got too far off the beaten religious track. So maybe it's just my version of Christianity that's softer. I don't know.
I grew up without a religion, so this is one area where I don't understand anything about Christianity, Islam, or any other.
Interesting. That's interesting, man. We should talk. And not to say I'm not trying to convert you or anything like that. I was around other people who, like my cousins and stuff, they were much more church going than we were, and we went to church, but the priest told my parents that they weren't donating enough money to the church. And my parents said, okay, we're not going to come to the church anymore, you lunatic. Like, what? So they weren't donating enough money. And my dad said, on your bike, buddy, get out of here. I'm not coming back. So we never went back to the church. And so I watched people around me be influenced by church teachings, and I understood the church teachings. I took world religion in high school a couple of times, and not to say that gave me insight or anything like that. It was just more about the cultural practices of the religions. But in the modern me, so when I was a kid, I was kind of take it or leave it with God. I was like, I don't know. Like, what do you think about this? I don't know. I don't know. But now, there was somebody who wrote, and I read it recently, so I'll quote it here. I don't believe in God blindly. I believe in God the way a blind person believes in the sun. I can feel it. And I thought that resonated. I was like, yeah, because, yeah. And my parents always taught me that you don't need to have a church to have a relationship with God. And so my relationship with God is built personally, rather than through religious ceremony.
It's all about that one-to-one relationship. Get rid of the middleman.
Yeah, and it is. It's right in your head. And what are the craziest things? Like I think I pray every day now. I didn't used to, but I pray at the end of the day every day, and I have an app. More than 600 days streak. But the reason I do is because it tells the universe what you want. And you have to decide what you want. And so a lot, like I do the Lord's Prayer, and then I have specific individual prayers for my family members and things like that. But you can tune, I think that we live in a simulation, but we won't get into that. You can tune this simulation through what you want. And the only way to tune it is to decide what you want and then put it into the universe. And then you have to take action on that. You can't just put it into the universe and then nothing, right? But if you decide and you put it into the universe, you're much more likely to take action. And so while prayer is a thing that a lot of people do, that is just, a conversation with God, I think that it's a useful tool to move you forward meaningfully towards your goals.
Yeah, I always say, once I figure this mess out with the government, we fix our economy, I'll maybe focus on myself and find God.
Fair enough.
Now, I'm struggling along.
It's all the same. You have to, why not fix it all? You know what I mean? Although if you're fixing a car, you got to start at the front or the back. You got to choose something. I hear you.
I gotta go. I got
Yeah, man, me
another
too.
podcast with philosopher, the other two guys.
Fair enough. It was very nice having you on, Peyman. Let the audience know where they can find your stuff.
Sure. On X, you can follow me at Peyman Ascari 451, and then my podcast is In Lay Terms on